Welcome back. My name is Caleb Oliver and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about the book entitled The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. But before we start, just comment the word down below, habit, because that is the topic for today's video. Alright, let's get started. The main idea to focus on in the book entitled The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is that almost everything you do is a habit. Once you acknowledge this, you have the power to change your bad habits. Through research and many studies, Duhigg was able to find out that a habit can be broken down into three main parts. That's a cue, a routine, and a reward. So in basic terms, a cue is a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. AKA, it is the feeling that prompts you to do your habit. The routine part is the actual habit you do. And it could be physical, it could be mental, or it could be emotional. And then the reward here is the good feeling that you receive from doing this habit. The reward helps your brain figure out if the pattern loop is worth remembering for the future. And if you get a good response, then yes, and that's why it's a habit, because you keep doing it, you keep feeling good because you keep doing it. So the author in this book gives an example of this, his personal example. He says while he was writing this book, he always was tempted to go to the cafeteria and get a cookie in the afternoon, and it became a bad habit because he gained a little weight. His wife made some fun of him, so he said, alright, I gotta change this habit. So for him, his cue was, I'm bored at work. His routine was, grab a cookie at the cafeteria. And his reward was, feeling good that he ate a cookie. Or so he thought. In a few moments, I'm gonna go over how he was able to change that habit. But now, let's go into the top 5 ideas I got from reading this book. So we have first, number 1. And number 1 is, replace bad habits. So from the book here we learn that you can't stop a bad habit, but rather you need to replace it with a good one. And the book says, this is pretty much a paraphrase quote, you can't extinguish bad habits, but rather to change a habit you need to keep the old cue and keep the old reward, but insert a new routine, and that is how you'll transform your habit. And this is interesting to talk about because, you know, in common terms, people used to say,
you know, man, you need to break that habit, or oh, how you gonna break that habit, or oh, I have a bad habit, how am I gonna break it?
But in this book we learn you don't break a habit, but you need to change it because otherwise it won't fully go away. So, what the author did to change his bad habit was, he analyzed why he had the bad habit of eating the cookie every afternoon, and then he realized what his real problem was. It took some time to kind of figure this out, but he realized in the middle of the day he was just bored and he needed a distraction. So he came up with a plan, and this is how he changed his bad habit to a good habit. His cue is 3:30 p.m. It's the afternoon time. His new routine was, at 3:30, I'm gonna go walk over to a friend's desk. We're gonna talk for 10 minutes or so. And then his reward was, he got distracted. He felt relief from his boredom. And that was what he really wanted. He didn't really want a cookie or to actually eat. He just needed something to do in the middle of the day to kind of, you know, boost his spirits. Now we have number 2. Number 2 here is believe to change. So what this means is you need to have a belief in something to actually make real change. Now, most habits in the book said you can change it in the way we just talked about. Keep the same cue, change the routine, and then you have the same reward. But some habits, in order to change them, you need one more element, and that element here is belief. This was noted when a group of participants in Alcoholics Anonymous was interviewed. They said the thing that made the difference, that really made them quit alcohol, was belief in something bigger than themselves. And that helped them change. They needed to believe in something, and it could be, for example, a belief that things will get better. A strong belief in that, and that helped them get over the hard times. And for most of them, it was actually a belief in God. That's what really made it strong for them, a belief in a higher power. they were able to trust God, then they were able to get out of their alcoholism even when they faced real difficulty. Because the problem with the addiction was a lot of them would quit for a while, but then an inflection point, a really stressful high point for them would come. Then they would go back to drinking. But this belief here, something bigger than themselves, belief in God or something very strong, is what really helped them change their habit. And this is actually one of the 12 steps in the 12-step program. I'm going to read the quote here. This is step number 2 for them. It says, "Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity." So that is it. That's built in to the 12 steps in order for them to quit the bad habit, in this case alcoholism, quit that habit that they no longer want to partake in. And a study that was conducted that reviewed the behaviors of these alcoholics showed that people who had belief in something greater than themselves were actually able to stay sober for a longer time. They stayed sober longer than those who did not have a belief. So it is so important to actually believe that change can happen. Have a strong belief, and then you can make a positive change, a change that will make a good habit in your life. I just want to say, if you're getting any value out of this video, just click the like button down below. Also, click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll be notified the moment I post my next video. And just comment the word down below, habit, because that is the topic for today's video. Doing things like this really helps support my channel, and it helps my content get pushed to a larger audience. So for doing this, I say thank you. Now we have number 3. And number 3 here is Keystone Habits. So a Keystone Habit is a habit that triggers widespread change. It makes it easier to change other habits. And I like to call this one success begets success. Because there are some habits that you can change, and once you change that, it starts to change other things in your life and other things and other things, and then all of a sudden you're a totally different person in the best way possible. So for example, the book notes that there's something about exercising that makes other good habits easier. So exercising led to other good habits. It led to eating better, it led to being more productive at work, it led to people improving their finances, it led to people feeling less stressed. So you see how just one change you make can then continue to improve yourself. So that's what a Keystone Habit is. And I do believe that this can actually work in the reverse as well. The book doesn't mention this, but there has to be an opposite to a Keystone Habit, or a Keystone Habit that then leads to bad habits. Because for example, this is my personal experience, staying up late would be an example of this, because I stay up late, one bad habit, which then means I need to eat. And then when I'm eating late, I'm eating junk food, that's a second bad habit. And then that leads to a third bad habit, or a third bad consequence, because the next day I wake up late and then that throws off that day. So it works both ways. You can do one good habit and then have it continue to make you better, or you could do one bad habit and it can continue to make you do worse. So you want to make sure you choose the good habit so you can continue to improve your life. And one thing to note about a Keystone Habit is the reason that this works is because you're experiencing small wins. When you go out to exercise, you have an accomplishment, a feeling of accomplishment, like, yay, I worked out, yay, I feel good. And it's that small win that then boosts you to do something else without you even knowing it. Like, oh, I need to wake up earlier. Oh, I need to eat healthier. I need to exercise. Keep exercising. So again, success begets success in a Keystone Habit. The hardest part the book mentions is you just have to find that Keystone Habit. But once you find it, you're well on your way to success. So now we have number 4. Number 4 here is create a plan. So overall, you need to create a plan to avoid an inflection point in your bad habit and overall achieve long-term success. So what this means is when you have a very stressful situation and you really want to fall into that bad habit, you need to write out a plan ahead of time so you'll know what to do when things get hard, and this is how you will achieve success. Because if you don't do this, you're more likely to fall right back into that bad habit, and then you have to start over again. For example, in the book, they followed a few patients who went through hip surgery and they were having pain, but the people who actually succeeded after having the hip surgery were people who wrote out a plan to deal with the pain. So one man wrote down, every time I get up from the couch, I'm going to start walking immediately, because he knew that's when the pain would be worse. but if he started walking immediately, he would eventually feel better and he would be good. And he wrote this down and followed through with it because he knew if he didn't, he'd probably quit, which then would make the healing process worse and harder, so he really wanted to make sure he did this the right way. When we have a plan for these inflection points or these really stressful moments that make us fall into our bad habits, it's more likely that we'll succeed. And realistically, that makes sense. When you plan for difficulty or when you plan for anything in life, you're more likely to succeed because you know what you're going to do, versus being led by your emotions, and your emotions might make you fall back into your bad habit. Also, it's important to note, the more you do this, create a plan to get over the inflection point, that becomes a habit, and then it becomes easier for you to deal with these difficulties in your life. So again, success begets success. Write down the plan, and then you follow through with the plan, and then following through with the plan becomes your habit, and then all of a sudden, not so much all of a sudden, but you've broken that bad habit. You've changed it into a good habit, what you wanted to do. Now we have number 5. Number 5 here is Camouflage the New Habit. So, what you do here is you need to incorporate something new into an already established habit. And you can do this by, as the book says, making the exotic familiar. So basically, when you're trying to incorporate something new into your life or into a setting, you need to blend it in with things that are already familiar, and that way it will be more easily accepted. The new habit will be more easily accepted. A specific example that they mentioned in this book is when the song Hey Ya by Outkast came out. So before the song came out, they did a lot of research on the song, and it looked like it was going to be a hit. It looked like everybody was going to love it, and it was just going to be great. But when they actually released the song, it didn't do well, and they tried to figure out why didn't people like it, why didn't they like it. It was too unfamiliar. People didn't know how to classify it, and if you can't classify a song on the radio, people don't like it. So it didn't do well initially. It was only when they blended the unfamiliar, this new song Hey Ya, with some familiar stuff, songs that people already knew, that is when the song became more popular. So what they did was they sandwiched it. And this is like a trick that they use on the radio often, apparently. They would play a familiar song first, a song that's already an established hit. Then they would play Hey Ya. Then they would play another already established hit. And packaging it like that made people like the song more and more. And once they packaged it like that, then the song was able to take off and become a great hit. Another example of blending the unfamiliar with the familiar that the book presents is back in the 1940s during World War II. The United States was having a little bit of a meat shortage because the United States was sending so much meat and supplies abroad for the troops. So back home in the US, there was less prime cuts of meat. So what was left was pretty much the organs of the animals. Now, traditionally, the wives who were cooking the meals, they did not want to serve organ meat to their family. So what the government did to actually make this meal look more appetizing was they dressed the meal up to look like what Americans already ate. They prepared foods such as liver meatloaf, and when they incorporated again the unfamiliar into the familiar, people began to like it. And in just a few years, about 10 years or so, liver and other organs went from being something that nobody wanted to eat to almost like a comfort food, a delicacy that people love. So it goes to show that you can take something that's unfamiliar, package it in with the familiar, and then it will become more popular and have more widespread success. So that's interesting to note in terms of changing a habit and incorporating something new into your life. Overall, I like this book because it was good to learn that most of what we do is a habit. And once we know that, we have the power to change out the bad habits for good habits. So it's good to learn that and then be able to take a little bit more control in your life. The one thing that I'll mention I didn't necessarily like about this book was its length. It was about 11 hours long on Audible. And it was that long because they gave so many examples and they went in depth in every example. Examples from sports and from things that happened in social justice and things that happened in science. So by giving all these examples, the book was very long. So if they would have cut some of that out, the book would have been a little bit shorter. But other than that, I really enjoyed the book, and it is good to know that we can change our bad habits. If you're interested in reading this book, you can click the link down below. sign up for Audible and get the book there. I'll also leave another link down below if you want to buy the book in paperback form. Well, that brings us to the end here, but I just want to say before you click out, it's much appreciated if you click the like button. Also click subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way you'll be notified the moment I post my next video. And we're also going to have a question of the day here. You can just answer it down in the comment section below. Which of these tips was your favorite? Which one do you want to use to help change a bad habit into a good habit in your life? So just start a conversation down below. I'll be sure to get back to you, answer your comment, and leave a little heart next to it as well. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.